I'm your friendly neighborhood Artemis, and today I thought I'd take a look at Jubilee's Spectrum video for the asexual community. No community is a monolith, and I'm sure with the ace community it'll be exactly the same, but I thought I'd pop myself in, see how I do in relation to everyone else, and yeah, just have a little bit of fun. If you're one of the new subscribers, I want to say hi. I have a message for you at the end, but without further ado, let's get watching.
Even though
Okay.
I'm asexual, I still experience attraction.
I'm going to say that I strongly agree with this one because attraction is not just sexual attraction. Now, if they had said, even though I'm ace, I still experience sexual attraction, I'd probably be like, probably not. Definitely, though, some sort of attraction thing going on, whether it's like, you're amazing and I want to be your best friend, or you look amazing, or like, I don't know, whatever's going on there, something's going on there. Okay, yeah?
Wait, no, I did it wrong. I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the class.
I would be exactly
like, there
that.
have been times in my life where I've been like, is this attraction? Or like, is something happening here? But for the most part, I have just been like, no, like that person is nice looking, but I don't feel any sort of
Interesting.
thing.
Interesting.
Asexuality, it really is a large spectrum.
Very true.
Under the spectrum, I fall under demisexual, which basically means that I need a strong emotional bond with someone before I could feel any type of sexual attraction.
I'm glad that they have some graces here, although some demis won't ID as grace.
I can look at someone and say, this person is really attractive, but, you know, I don't have sexual attraction or like, I want to date this
That's why there are multiple
There's
types of
also,
attraction.
like different forms of attraction.
See?
I can be attracted to aesthetics, but I don't really have like a romantic attraction.
Yeah.
I masturbate on a regular basis.
Oh gosh.
3, 2, 1.
I would say closer to the strongly agree side. This is embarrassing. Do I really want to put this on the internet? If not, I'll cut this out. Okay, so basically, like, it's pretty obvious that attraction is not the same as, like, libido, say, you know? Your body's going to tell you, and that's very different to who you're attracted to, regardless of a spectrum or not. There will be plenty of people who are attracted to people but don't physically feel like doing the thing, and that's a different thing to being a-spec.
I don't feel like horny often. So like when it does happen, I was like, okay. I think it's scientifically, it's like I just need to relieve myself.
Gotta do something about it.
Yeah, do something about it.
Yeah. It just seems so time consuming to do regularly. Like, I mean,
How on earth?
I got TV
Okay,
shows
I
could
guess-
watch. I don't know.
In terms of me, there's no need to make it a whole thing, and it's like sort of just like, okay, let's get through this as quickly as possible. That sounds terrible. You know what I mean though? Like, it doesn't need to be time consuming if you know your body, and you know, you can just go do and done, and that's it. I'm very embarrassed now. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Moving on.
I just feel like there's no need for it, you know? I'm really content with myself.
That's
like,
good. Yeah.
If I have an urge, I can eat.
Personally, like when
It's a
I get
different
an
urge,
urge,
for sure.
it's more of an annoyance for me.
Interesting.
Asexual people, like, just because they don't experience attraction doesn't mean that they don't have any libido at all.
Exactly.
I love the way this group is taking this opportunity to like educate about like even if it's not their experience, like that person speaking was on the disagree side, right? But they are being very much like, here are the facts, and you shouldn't assume XYZ about the community because we're all a diverse bunch with different experiences, which is really great. We gotta love and support each other no matter what.
Like, I don't get it, but I respect it.
That's cute. Yeah, that's like me with gender.
I find sex repulsive. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, this is hard. For me, it's going to depend on specific circumstances and what kind of sex. more so than umbrella the whole thing. So I guess I'd definitely be somewhere in the middle. I'd probably say somewhat agree, because I personally find the favorable to repulsed, assuming that that's linear, I find that problematic, at least to my experience, because it's like that could change on a day-to-day basis, or that could very much be differing depending on what exactly we're talking about, how much you trust the people involved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
There's always a bunch of other ways of attraction, because like at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be sexual in nature. You can find it with like other things, whether it's aesthetic
I
or
generally
otherwise.
would find other forms of connection make more sense to me, for sure. But like repulsed is such a strong word.
Some people communicate through sex, like that's their way of showing their emotion. And though it may not be for me, it just depends on who the person is. Because you're supposed to be able to trust that person as well. So if you don't trust them, like
Trust is the key word. Trust is
I
the
really
key
do feel
word.
like sex, for me, as a demisexual, it's like if we're not connected on an emotional or intellectual level, I just don't want it.
I'm not repulsed by other people doing it. Like anyone can do what they want, obviously.
That's so important to say, like, and I think people often confuse the term sex favorable and sex positive, right? I think all aces should be sex positive, and if you're not, come have a chat and we'll talk about like why you feel a need to police other people's sexuality. But sorry, but yeah, generally like wherever you fall, like you can be repulsed by the idea of sex, but as long as you're respecting that, everyone else is going to have different needs and attitudes and wants, and as long as they're respecting yours, you should respect theirs. No, that's not conditional. You should respect theirs. They should also respect yours.
It's not something I can see myself participating in.
Mm-hmm.
Asexuality is purely about the attraction and not about the action. You can not experience that attraction and still be like, oh, this feels nice. To me, like, sex is like an activity that you do in the same way that you can like hug someone or shake their hand. Like for me, it doesn't have like some other level or like the level that society wants to tell you that is inherent to sex. Like I'm just like, no, it's an activity that you do with one or more other people. Like that's all it is.
Exactly.
100%.
I am a virgin. 3, 2, 1.
Look, the entire concept of virginity is really interesting to me as someone named after the Greek goddess of virginity, amongst other things. So much like social capital on whether or not you have done this. I'm not being specific thing, peanut butter, or whether or not I've. These are all just but I'll talk more about that at a later point, like proper thought out, in-depth thoughts with research and such like. Not today. Today is just Artemis rambling.
Go.
It's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
I was always upfront, like, hey, I'm asexual. This might not be your thing.
It's a very good thing to do.
And then they're like, no, I totally understand. 3 months later, they're having a tantrum because you won't kiss them.
I feel like, so setting the boundary about like what you expect of a relationship is important. And just saying I'm ace doesn't actually necessarily mean anything in terms of like what that means for your relationship. I think you do need to go a little bit deeper. Like you need to say, this is in the cards for me, this is not. I'm not going to do this, or I might do this, but like I got to trust you first. All of those things I think it's important to put on the table if you're going into it through the context of dating. I mean, I guess if you're in your other relationships, maybe exploring like, hey, you're my friend, you wanna do a bit of smooches, that's a different thing. Because just going in and saying I'm ace, all that says is I don't experience attraction, and that doesn't say anything about your behavior or your repulsion levels or et cetera, and I think that all of that is an important conversation to have. I'm not saying this person didn't have that conversation, but I just think, that's important to put out there in the context of dating, especially.
I lost my virginity when I was 15 or 16. What about you?
I was 17 when I lost mine, and it's not the greatest story. I was coerced into having sex by my girlfriend at the time.
Oh no, friend, no. I hate how common this story is. There are so many people, because of amatonormativity, because of compulsory heterosexuality, end up putting themselves in uncomfortable positions or being coerced into breaking their boundaries by others they care about, which really sucks. I hate how common it is, though. Yeah, and I feel so sorry for this person.
So I lost my virginity because if you loved me, then you'd have sex with me. And at the time I was like, okay, this is my first relationship, and I don't want to.
That's so fucking.
I don't want to have sex with her, but I'm scared that she might break up with me because I don't want to have sex with her.
Oh. That's really terrible. It's a terrible thing to have happen to you and to do to someone else. Love is an emotional bond, and I get that for people that physical touch, and particularly sexual physical touch, can be an important way of sharing that love with someone. But, that kind of sort of ultimatum blackmail bullshit is just so harmful. What this person probably should have said is, I need this from this relationship, and just been very open with that. And I guess this person probably would have still felt that they had to, fulfill that role, even if it wasn't right for them. And I hate that. It's all about boundaries. And I think whether you're a-spec or not, communicating your boundaries around like what you're comfortable with is very, very important.
Yeah, and that's a really strong thing. It's the one, so of course you'd want to make sure you'd stay with them. I want to hug you.
Yeah.
I know. It's but like,
We support you.
I commend you for, having gone through that and being able to still, find yourself and be who you are today. And I want to hug you, but I don't know if I can.
I mean, me personally, I've never.
I want to hug them too, and I'm not even in the room. I'm probably not even in the same country. The same continent. That's really rough. And this is not the first person I've heard share a story like this. Some people in my life who are really dear to me have had that same experience. It's so shit. It's so shit. We need to do better as a society. We need to do better. We need more good sex education in schools, and they need to include the A-spectrum. Like, so important. So fucking important.
I don't wish that I could experience sex. There's moments where I wish I wasn't asexual.
Interesting. I don't know if I have that. Like, I don't know. I guess sometimes I wish that I was a bit less confusing for other people, that like the way I relate to the world was just something that was easier for other people to understand, and I had to do less educating and less boundary stating, and I was less likely to scare people off because of that boundary stating. It's not necessarily me that's the problem there. But, you know, it's interesting to think about.
It's like it's so ingrained in our society
Mm-hmm.
that you should have attraction. You should have a romantic attraction. You should have sexual attraction.
So the Romo stuff, on the other hand, whoa, that's a whole other kettle of fish. If you watch David J. Bradley's video on Company, just know that I cried watching that video because it hits freaking deep. It's hard because the fear is of being lonely, of being alone, right? And that, you know, our society is set up in such an amatonormative way that without these patterns of relationships that we see all the way around everywhere, without falling into those acceptable patterns of relationships, you start to wonder, like, okay, but when shit goes down, who's going to be there for me? And I'm very glad that I have a wonderful network of excellent friends, but even then I still feel that. But that hits me more on the ARO side than the ACE side.
So a lot of us, if we don't have the word, we feel so broken until we find it.
Mm-hmm. This is exactly why, as soon as I discovered the ACE community, that I started making videos on the internet about it, because I realized so quickly how much of the community just felt broken, how many people were forcing themselves into experiences that were that pushed their boundaries in an unsafe way. How many people were just so despairing about the fact that they weren't like everyone else. And I was lucky that even before I found the community, that I was really self-assured. And I'm also lucky that I found the community so quickly, so young. But there are people who, live into their late 60s, coming into the community every day and being like, oh my God, I've spent my entire life not realizing this about myself and realizing why I was struggling where everyone else was so comfortable and happy. Oh my God.
I feel invisible to the LGBTQ plus community.
I am non-binary as well, and I've been a very active leader in several little micro communities, queer communities in my life, so I feel like I'm an outlier here. I very, very much feel like the queer community is a place for me, but I did even before I was out as non-binary, because I've been the person making queer spaces, and so I've always made sure that they were ACEBEC friendly, but I know this is not the experience of a lot of other ACEBEC people. I'm saying ACEBEC, this is specifically ACEs. A lot of people, especially folks who are hetero-romantic, do not feel welcome in the community, which is really sad. So I do my part when I am being when I'm creating a space, a queer space, that I am very loudly and openly welcoming to the ACE community, to the ARO community, to anyone who is questioning those things, anyone who maybe has found a term that other people think is too weird, or all the classic things that people complain about, used to complain about ACEs in terms of the queer community. I make an effort of making sure that everyone feels as welcome as possible. Does it always work? Who knows? But I know that's very much not everyone's opinion. Or experience. Let's hear these people's thoughts.
Go.
Okay, most of them agree. This is good.
Include the sexuality that is absence of that.
Oh, wait. I celebrated them all agreeing, and the agreeing was the invisibility. I thought that they felt welcomed, and now I feel silly because I misread the question. I find that really sad. I do. I find that sad, but I don't find it surprising. I was surprised in a happy way, but that's because I misread the question. That's my fault.
The LGBT community of itself is very sexualized.
Interesting. See, I've not found
Pride, it's very sexual. I think it's hard for them to...
I mean, I think people use sexuality as a statement. I wouldn't actually say, though, that, like, you know, certain dancing or certain ways of dressing is inherently sexual. Like, they allude to sex and sexuality for sure, and they're quite, like, deliberately doing that. It's almost a form of protest against, like, you know, the sort of conservative ideas of what belongs in the bedroom and what belongs on the streets. It's like breaking that. I wouldn't necessarily say that's sexual, though. It's just a different kind of expression. But then again, I am, like I said, in mostly pretty accepting spaces, either spaces I've built or spaces that are adjacent to that are run by people who I know have similar values. So maybe I'm the outlier there.
I've heard so many people say that asexuals don't get as oppressed as other people in the LGBT community, but that's not all that LGBT community is.
We come together so that we can have power, right? Like that's the point of collecting all these like smaller disparate communities together into one larger one, is so that we have more political power. So why are you turning people away because you don't think that they're hurting enough? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Like, because ACEs do have real experience of discrimination. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get into all the gross aphobic bullshit that goes on in society, but like, you can't say something terrible about the ACE community and then turn around and say that the ACE community doesn't have any barriers in life, because you're being a barrier. You're being a barrier, I'm sorry. And, you know, even if someone has had it really, really easy, that doesn't mean that their experience, you know, that is hard won, that is different from being the norm, should be invalidated and should be excluded. That's bullshit.
For me, this question is a little bit personal, because the closest thing for me was my auntie, because my auntie is lesbian. And it comes to relation with family, like everyone accepts my auntie. But when it comes to me, it's just like, oh, you don't exist. You haven't tried it yet. It makes me feel a little bit empty, because like, you're my family. You're supposed to be with me. Like, you're supposed to be able to comfort me.
That is very real. I think it's mostly a lack of education, that people just haven't been introduced to these concepts, and they haven't been given the opportunity to learn. And but it's also like a little bit of how that pairs to a society which, you know, in many ways values purity and all of this other bullshit, especially for women. Like, so people think you're perpetuating that, or like in terms of like people who are demi say, there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what that actually means, and so people say that's just normal. And there's also so many people who are probably on the ACE spectrum who just don't know that they are, and so when people tell them that I identify as this, they're like, that's just normal. And it's like, no, you're probably, you know, the gray stripe right here. That experience is not as common as you think it is.
Being sex positive and encouraging people to have as much sex as they want also means that sometimes they don't want any. I've heard people say like what you experience is valid, but you're not queer enough to be in the community. And I'm like, bullshit. Then what is queer enough?
Exactly. I'm sorry. Stamp of approval to that person. Yeah, there's no such thing as queer enough other than being queer, you know? Like, that's the only prerequisite to being queer enough. If you are, you know, in any way separate from the standard rules of, you know, compulsory heterosexuality and heteronormativity, if you exist outside of that, you're queer. I don't care. You can come for me if you disagree. My comment section is open. I will fight you. Don't bait the trolls, Artemis. Don't bait the trolls.
We are becoming a little bit more open-minded about it, but I don't want to give too much credit because I 100% agree that we need a lot of work in the community.
It's about specific micro communities, and some are so welcoming, and some need work. And there are a lot of places that have been overrun by exclusionists. And really, I just put my effort into fostering places that are like the former, that are welcoming, that are curious, that are interested in unpacking all of the societal bullshit that any person that's queer has had to, you know, battle against their whole life. Like those are the spaces I'm interested in fostering. And I guess the more that we interact with those communities and ignore the ones that are toxic and awful, the better it's going to be for everyone.
The increased visibility is great. It's really good, but it also is driven by ace people and
Very
ace
true.
facts. And
Very true.
There's no one, at least there are fewer people in the broader queer community who are reaching out to us
Step
and being like,
up,
we want
allies.
you involved.
You can do
know
it.
some people, like, they kind of just feel like they don't belong in the community, so they just stick to basically an ace community.
We really find community through the internet. I've not been with this many ace facts ever in my life.
No. Start your own local group if you don't have one, or find one if there is. And not most cities, but many major cities have groups that meet up. I mean, less during the pandemic, but even like meeting up on Discord to play games together is still a meetup. Internet friends are still friends. But you know, like that real community is so important. So yeah, like find your people and cherish them, because it's so truly wonderful.
I am still exploring my sexuality. 3,
Strongly agree.
2, 1,
Yeah.
go.
I used to identify as demi, and then I went to ace, like gray ace. So like I'm still at like, is this correctly?
So yeah, I thought demi to begin with, and then I spent a long stretch of time just IDing as A-ray ace, and that's probably still what I outwardly identify with the most. I am still exploring like whether orientated A-ray ace fits better, or whether I'm grey in either romance or, you know, sexual attraction. Like, I don't know. It's complicated, and I don't know if I'm gonna have a clear answer, really, and that's fine. I don't necessarily need one. It's totally cool to be working things out at whatever stage of your life you're in.
I think I have it pretty down pat. And I think that's one of the misconceptions about the ace community, is that people will approach you and will think that you're not experienced, or you don't know what you're looking for, or you're too young and you'll figure it out.
I believe in fluidity, and I believe that people do change, but I also believe that it's really shitty to assume that that's going to happen, and assume that people don't understand their experiences and aren't an authority on what's actually going on. Like, that's just a really terrible thing to do. I think the better thing is to just take people for what they say. And if people are still working things out, they're still experimenting, or things are changing for them, then be accepting, and don't be like, see, I told you so, because no, they were telling the truth about what they felt in that moment. And just because things have changed for them now, that doesn't make that past identity of theirs any less valid, unless they tell you it was, unless they were like, well, I was saying this, but that's only because I didn't have the words for this. That's fine. People will say the same thing too, like me and gender. But like, if people are very strongly like, no, I'm this, and then they change that doesn't necessarily mean they were wrong. No, that probably means that they've just learnt more things about themselves, or their experience has changed, and that's normal. It's really normal to, you know, grow as a person throughout time. But that doesn't mean that it happens to everyone, and assuming that it's going to happen and that you're going to be the one that changes someone, that is bleh, terrible. Do not, banned, stop.
Like for me, it's like I'm in the disagree section because like I feel I'm pretty solid in my identity. There are times where I'm like, was that attraction? What was that? But like it doesn't matter what it was. Like it's not going to change my behavior.
Interesting. Like I am very, very solidly aspec, and the nuances of language is something that fascinates me so much. Like, when do we need a more broad term like aspec that I know definitely fits me, and when do we need the more specific nuance? There's so many like different micro labels that aspec folks use that, you know, help them to, you know, validate and, you know, identify their experiences. And I think those are really important, but at the same time, it's harder to find community in these little micro places. So this is the kind of thing that I'm questioning. It's not like I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and be like, oh yeah, I'm fucking straight, mate. Like, that's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. No.
I've had the term since I was like 10. I'm sure my mom probably thought I would grow out of it. I'm sure she thought I was a late bloomer or something. But like as I got older, it's just like it just kept fitting. There
is very real pressure for people in our community to grow out of it, and that's awful, right? When I talk about the importance of, you know, accepting fluidity, that is the last thing I want to be implying that I'm suggesting, right? You gotta listen to people. They know who they are, and whether that changes or not, they know who they are. So please fucking respect them and listen, please.
I had an experience where I found the term when I was 11, 12.
I thought I was young at 17. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I was old. I don't think so. I guess I grew up, you know, in the 90s, and some of these people are probably a decent bit younger than me, and they had access to the kind of resources that weren't around when I was that age. But good for them.
So when I first heard that, when I first found out about what even sexuality is, I found asexual and I was like, okay, I'm asexual. But then when I got to high school, I was like, you can be straight or something. Like, everyone else around you is straight. Yeah. And then I was like, okay, no, maybe I'm gay because I'm not straight. And then I got to college. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm bi. Maybe maybe I'm something.
I love, historically, ace community and the bi community like this, right? Solidarity. We all think the same about several genders. I was very lucky that I was like, not straight, not gay, not bi, and okay with that. I was just, I don't know how I managed it, but I really was so lucky. And now I'm like, a little bit bi, a little bit, yeah.
And only like in the last couple months was I was like, I finally went back to asexual. It's a broad label and I can be comfortable being under that umbrella.
Yes. And this is why I am very, very comfortable saying I am ace, even though I am, questioning where on that spectrum I am, because those words are also umbrella terms. Even though aspec is an umbrella term, aro and ace are both umbrella terms. So I'm very comfortable continuing to use them as I question things for that exact reason. And I want to hug these people. I'm going to hug you. You go, hug. Cool. So thank you for making it through the end of this. I hope I wasn't too rambly and that I, said some interesting / nice things. I wanted to take this moment to thank all of the wonderful people who have subscribed in the last 2 or 3 months. The Altruist Attraction video I made got a lot of eyeballs on it, and my subscriber count more than doubled just in the last 90 days or so. I am so grateful to you, and I do have more content like that coming once I'm done with my masters, but in the meantime, I hope you'll bear with me as I do a couple of low-key things like this. Thank you for sticking around. If you're interested in supporting me financially, I have a Patreon. You can join for $1 Australian or more, although $1 Australian mostly will go to paying Patreon fees. But no matter what level you join me at, you get access to my monthly live stream where I talk through my creative process. Even though I'm not making many YouTube videos at the moment, I am writing 2 plays. So I talk about that stuff on there too. It's a Patreon for me and my whole artistic practice, not specifically just for YouTube. So yeah, if that interests you, come along. If not, have an excellent day. If you haven't subscribed, feel free. If you have, thank you again. I look forward to seeing you in the future with another video. Goodbye!